On the campaign trail, Harris is pushing joy, while Trump paints a darker picture. Huh. Interesting.
Joy.
Joy. Joy.
It's just super joyous when you've let people across the border who have murdered Americans and you're not being held to account for any of the policies that you're responsible for. We've seen what her policies have been like. I mean, her record in the Senate was more liberal than Bernie Sanders.
But the press is supposed to be on the side of actual truth.
Yep.
Right.
Which would require asking people who are running for president of the United States tough questions. And by the way, as soon as she finally does sit down with like 60 Minutes or something and it's soft focus and it's not very tough, they're all going to be like, well, look at what our queen has done.
Yeah,
she did it.
And it's like, she's been shafting you guys for a month and a half, and you're totally fine with it, and you're totally fine with voters having no idea what this person believes or what she will do with your help in explaining it, right? Because they are on her side.
Nothing exposes their true motives quite like this candidacy from Kamala. I mean, they want the Democrat to win. Whoever that Democrat is that they think is going to give them the best chance to win, them being the media, whoever that person is, they're going to go for them full bore.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. I'm Michael Duncan, joined with me, comfortably smug, John Ashbrook, and a special guest, Mary Katharine Ham. How are you?
It is I. Not too special.
Very special.
Very special.
Very special.
Great
Thank
trade.
you.
We picked up MK and we dropped Holmes.
Yeah,
The show's going to be banger.
Yeah, it's that time of the year. Football season's getting close, and it's the off season. Sometimes you got to make a trade.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it was a good move.
Yeah,
I've entered the portal.
yeah. Holmes is on vacation, a well-deserved vacation, but in his stead, we've got a fantastic show. I mean, I'm looking at some of these topics, and it's going to be incredible. Did everybody have a good weekend?
Terrific.
Yeah, it was a great weekend. You know, I think Smug had a better weekend than Duncan, right? I mean, it's only preseason, but what happened in that Broncos?
Broncos beat the Colts, made them look terrible.
Made them look terrible.
Our QB's looking great.
A
Running game is looking
preseason
great.
game?
The Colts are falling apart. The quarterback was crying on the sideline.
You know it's a tough scene when you're celebrating preseason games. You know,
We're just not going to lose this season, period.
I got to say, Bo Nix looked pretty good.
I was shocked.
You know, and very mobile. He's got some tools.
Yeah. Well, that's the Broncos' way. Is you get everyone's hopes up, and then you just play terribly the rest of the
Yeah,
season.
right. Yeah, no, that's right.
So take what you can get.
Exactly.
Enjoy it.
That's why I'm celebrating this one. Who knows when the next will be?
I also saw that the AP preseason poll came out, and your Georgia Bulldogs are number one.
They are indeed.
Wow.
You know, last year didn't go as well as I wanted it to, but you know it was still pretty damn good. So
Yeah.
we'll flex this year. Do
Yeah.
our best. It's a new era.
It is a new era. It is a new era. Expanded playoff. You know, a lot of participation trophies.
Well, we spent many years. We spent many years in that 5 to 8 ranked slot,
Yeah.
where you don't get to go to the championship.
It's
So
tough.
just being in there this is a whole new game. For
I don't
me.
feel bad for you at all.
You don't have to, but
You've
I did
had
wait.
so
I
much
did wait
glory.
41 years.
Yeah. No, fair.
From 1980 to
Fair.
2 years ago. Yeah. 3 years ago.
Well, we had great weekends, and something from this weekend that we got to start the show with because it's hilarious. Kamala Harris copying from Donald Trump. Let's play that first clip.
Earlier this year, right here in Vegas, we celebrated your historic contract win. And it is my promise to everyone here, when I am president, we will continue our fight for working families of America. Including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Where have we heard that?
Yeah, so that's Donald Trump's no tax on tips policy, which now apparently is the orthodoxy of the Democratic Party.
I mean, the Trump campaign's even giving out stickers Let's say,
Oh, yeah.
vote Trump, no tax on tips.
Yeah.
That you put on your bill.
Put it on the bill, right? When you sign the tip.
So it's not like she's being slick with this one.
No.
No,
No.
I think this one is the most successfully branded Trump idea.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
she's like,
other than the wall.
She's like, well, I need one idea. And she picks that one. Honestly, it's quite embarrassing.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, especially on the heels of getting everything that anybody could ever want from the media. I mean, she hasn't had to say a single thing, hasn't had to do a single interview. They just sing her praises left and right. And the first thing that she does is, oh, yeah, I'll just do an idea from Trump.
And it's particularly brazen considering, she is the vice president of an administration that hired 87,000 new IRS agents to
Yeah.
track down Venmo payments
Yeah.
for
Right.
service workers,
Right.
For the people that cut your hair or cut your grass or, babysit your kids and you tip them on Venmo and they're tracking down those transactions. And now she has the audacity to go to a rally and be like, hey, my idea? No tax on tips.
And in the Biden-Harris administration, the majority of IRS actions were done against people making under $100,000.
Well, of course, because they can't afford high-priced lawyers and accountants who know the tax system and how to exploit it or get the write-offs or whatever. It's always disproportionately impacts low-income people and people in the service industry who are scraping to get by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's a Breitbart headline I would like to read you guys that when Kamala Harris voted to pass legislation allowing IRS to track workers' tips so they can be taxed.
Oh,
Yeah.
Exactly what you
that's
were
a good
talking
one.
about.
Exactly. I put up a tweet about this and people got big mad on the internet. All these leftists came in the replies to be like, well, actually, it's just business transactions. It's like, who the fuck is doing $600 worth of serious business transactions on Venmo? No, it's tips.
It's the billionaires.
Yeah, it's those
$600
billionaires.
Venmo transactions. That's whose it is.
And that's the thing is because the record that she can run on is when she can't make the public know, right? She can't let them know that, okay, well, when I was in a position of power, I let criminals out. The border was opened. IRS agents were essentially attacking the middle class in this country. So her entire agenda, that like the ad she ran immediately afterwards, being like, Kamala's going to be tougher on the border than Trump. It's just like
Right.
this brazen level of lying that
Right.
they're hoping that the swing voters who have only just begun to tune in will be like, huh, maybe this ad is right. It's telling me that Kamala's the one who's fighting to get rid of taxes on tips, and Kamala's going to be tough on the border. It's just like the biggest scam in politics.
Yeah, but the whole thing preserves this fiction that she's not in power right now. Like,
Yeah.
she could do something right now. She's not doing anything right
No.
now. You
Well,
know,
that's,
like,
that's to me the wildest part of this dereliction of duty by the press is like we have a very sort of dangerous world situation. We have an economic situation. It's not looking great. We don't really have a functioning president. He's doing like a meeting or a phone call per day, maybe, when he comes back from Delaware and lying on the beach. She's in some sort of power sharing agreement with him. Maybe she's like the co-president. She's out on the trail. We don't know. Nobody knows. But no one's really curious about any of this because they are preserving the fiction that she is just different from the administration that her name is literally in.
And I think that I was thinking about this weekend. That's a very good point. Is I think it's deliberate. I think that this administration and this campaign want to have as big of a gulf between Biden and Harris as physically possible. So she can't be tied down to everything she did the 4 years she was in the White House with Joe Biden. So you'll see an image of him on the beach, and then you'll see her out with Tim Walz. They're trying to make as big of a like, oh, these people don't even know each other.
Yeah,
she had nothing to do with
But
this.
Smug, she gets it both ways. Like it's incredible. She gets the trappings of the office of the presidency because she's now doing like co-press conferences
Yes.
with Biden.
Yeah.
Right. But she doesn't have any of the responsibility of being vice president and the record of the last 4 years.
And
Yeah,
anything-
another fun thing they say is like, well, yeah, she wasn't really in charge of setting policy. Well, who's ever said that about a vice president? Like, you don't have responsibility for this. But also, even if that were true, she's the tie-breaking vote in the Senate
Exactly.
for the policy.
Right.
Right.
I mean, she was the tie-breaking vote on that legislation that hired 87,000 new IRS agents. And now she goes there saying no taxes on tips. She was the person who said she was the last one in the room with Joe Biden on the Afghanistan withdrawal. How did that go?
Were you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
I was comfortable.
and anything that she can get pinned down, they're like, abracadabra, she was not the border czar. You know, they're like trying to brainwash the public of like, no, none of that stuff that you remember is true. She was never a border czar. It's a scam.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a lot of that. There's some incredible stories out there on Kamala Harris and this sort of rebrand that she's doing. We got a lot on Tim Walz, and we have J.D. Vance finding his swing here. He did all the Sunday shows this weekend. We got some incredible stuff out of that and some Iran news. We also have a guest, Joe Concha. You may have seen him on Fox. He's got a new book out. It's incredible. Ashbrook and I do that interview. We had a great time. He is a great guy.
Yeah.
So we'll be back with all of that right after this.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But DC politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
All right. So this first thing we got to get to is you were talking about at the beginning here of the show, the way that the media is sort of carrying the water of Kamala Harris and this reinvention of her. Do you remember the Mitt Romney Etch-a-Sketch? And they drag him through the mud for that.
Yeah.
Right? Like after the primary, he's going to have this Etch-a-Sketch moment. He prepares for the general election. Well, they're inventing a new woman out of whole cloth.
Yeah.
Let's put up graphic number 1, please, Spaghetts. Yeah, so for our audio-only listeners, we got some headlines here. This is from Politico. Harris promises to go tough on border security.
It's outrageous.
She promises, guys.
Yeah.
This time will be different.
It's outrageous.
The subhead there, just in case you think maybe Politico decided to add some context that, like, I don't know, she's full of shit. The subhead there is the vice president's forceful remarks at rally in Arizona.
Just forceful.
Yeah.
They were forceful. This needs one of those patented CNN parentheses. It's like, without evidence.
Yeah. Can we get a fact check on that?
Yeah. There's also this, there's a Time, I love this Time magazine cover. Do people still get Time? Is that a thing that still exists?
They just publish a cover, right? It doesn't arrive at your house.
Can you get it at an airport?
It's next to no one's toilet.
Yeah. It's just this, is that airbrush? Is it sort of illustrated and painted sort of just photo of Kamala looking longingly into the distance, and then her moment is printed underneath it. Her moment. It's sort of like they're giving her like the Barack Obama treatment here. Mm-hmm. You know? And then last from the AP, on the campaign trail, Harris is pushing joy while Trump paints a darker picture. Huh. Interesting.
Joy.
It's just super joyous when you've let people across the border who have murdered Americans and you're not being held to account for any of the policies that you're responsible for. Joe Biden didn't even acknowledge the servicemen who died. When Kamala is the last person in the room, they're just pushing joy, folks. Like, there's no responsible media left in this country to try and take a second and be like, we're not idiots.
You know, when I go to the grocery store and pay $400 for something that used to cost me under $100, all I can think of is joy.
Yeah.
Just joy. Nothing else comes to mind other than joy when I overpay for eggs and milk and every single thing that used to be normally priced before she took over.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're happy warriors.
Happy warriors.
Happy warriors who've been telling you for the last 6 years that everything is falling apart the second you cast a vote for our opponent. Like,
right.
the republic will end. By the way, the climate's going to kill you. Like, that's the joy we're talking about.
Right.
I will say that Walz is actually an affable and confident speaker, and that can do a lot for you. So I think folks should be careful about that, and Vance should prepare for that, because he can come across sort of like jocular if you don't look any deeper than that.
Right.
Kamala doesn't have that particular talent.
Yeah,
no,
we
he's
talked
a
about
good-
that on the last episode, right? Is that it's all surface right now with the Democrats. They
Right.
thought they could just add a folksy Midwestern dude to this ticket, and nobody would ask any questions about the policies anymore, and they would just sort of basically sell this brand, you know?
I mean, he also tells couch copulating jokes, so he's not like the nicest.
Yeah.
Right. He's a good liar.
Yeah.
And that's
A
the
good
thing
pretender with his hat.
Yeah.
he was brought in essentially because he's like a Trojan horse, right? Like he's this Wilford Brimley type of dude. Like, oh, this is just nice, Grandpa Walls. He seems like a nice guy. Throughout history, every one of the top communists was this like grandpa-looking dude, man. Like you go from Marx himself, Bernie Sanders, right? Like, do you trust Uncle Bernie? He seems like a nice guy. He's got some wild ideas, but he's a nice guy.
Yeah, so we got to get to this Axios story because it really paints a picture. Because it's not just the fawning headlines about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They're also they're doing cleanup for the Democrats. No surprise, really, there. This from Axios. Trump allies hit Harris and Walz with barrage of personal attacks. Personal attacks. You're running for president of the United States. I think you're fair game. Donald Trump and his allies are bombarding the new Democratic ticket with a blend of attacks ranging from policy critiques to deeply personal, identity-based insults. Why it matters.
The insults are identity-based.
Yeah.
Not like their entire reason for the campaign.
Right.
But go ahead.
Why it matters. Having lost the luxury of a familiar foe in President Biden, Trump has just 3 months to try to define Vice President Kamala Harris and her relatively unknown running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Republicans believe Trump has a clear path to victory if he can stay disciplined with a message centered on what they see as Harris and Walz's dangerously liberal economic and immigration policies. Obviously all true. We know that to be true. Mm-hmm. Trump hasn't been very disciplined as of late. We'll see. Tonight, we're recording this Monday evening. He's got that interview with Elon Musk, wide-ranging, no time limit. We'll see how that goes.
And I think part of this that you're seeing is the media is also giving up the game. They're like, he has to define Vice President Harris. We've seen what her policies have been like. I mean, her record in the Senate was more liberal than Bernie Sanders. They're essentially, now you see why Time is running a cover like that. Why Politico's got headlines like that is because they're doing everything they can to prevent her being held accountable, because her definition has already been done throughout her entire life. She's never worked in the public sector. Mm-hmm. She's got nothing but a record of what she would do in government, and it's all been disastrous.
But you're right. They are giving up the game. They're like, our opponents in defining this woman is the Republicans. We're the reporters. Yep. We define. We're rooting for the Democrats. We want them to win. Yep. So what we say is real.
Yeah. Right. There's two things here. There's tactical truth, which is like, of course it's tactically wise for her to never answer questions. Mm-hmm. That's good. But the press is supposed to be on the side of actual truth.
Yep. Right.
Which would require asking people who are running for president of the United States tough questions. And by the way, as soon as she finally does sit down with like 60 Minutes or something and it's soft focus and it's not very tough, they're all going to be like, well, look at what our queen has done.
Yeah,
she did it.
And it's like, she's been shafting you guys for a month and a half, and you're totally fine with it, and you're totally fine with voters having no idea what this person believes or what she will do with your help in explaining it, right? Because they are on her side.
Nothing exposes their true motives quite like this candidacy from Kamala. I mean, they want the Democrat to win. Whoever that Democrat is that they think is going to give them the best chance to win, them being the media, whoever that person is, they're going to go for them full bore. And that's what they're doing.
So to your point here, Ashbrook, this is the real payoff in the Axios piece here. And they always do this in Axios. They did the why it matters, and now this one is called Zoom In. Zoom In. Trump and his allies have revived old claims. Old claims?
Just old claims.
Old claims by a pair of Army veterans accusing Walz, who served in the National Guard for 24 years, of, quote, abandoning his unit by retiring 2 months before it received deployment orders to Iraq in 2005. J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate and a Marine veteran, even accused Walz of, quote, stolen valor, citing a video of the governor calling for gun control laws for the types of assault weapons he, quote, carried in war. Old claims. These are old claims? Because I feel like they're pretty new to, 99.9% of the electorate.
That's the thing is, they're in 1 second they say, well, no one really knows this guy. And they're like, okay, well, why are you bringing up old shit? Like, this guy's all about stolen valor. Like, why are you bringing up old shit?
No one knows this guy and would really like to keep it that way.
But that is exactly what the Dem press secretary would say. That's the Dem flack message, is that this is old. The newspapers in Minnesota have already looked into this, and they have determined that it's not valid. Well, the newspapers in Minnesota are run by a bunch of libs who want Democrats to win. And so, honestly, guys, this is one thing that where we always complain about how easy it is for the media, or easy it is for Democrats because they got easy media. It actually comes back on them a little bit because their candidates aren't really vetted. The stories supposedly looking into his stolen valor, the scandal in Minnesota, they didn't look into it. They were just looking to cover it up like they were done press secretaries.
That's the thing.
But I heard Eric Holder was in charge of this vetting, and I know he does a fine job at everything he attempts.
People kept bringing up that 72 hours after Waltz announces, you saw people on Twitter dig up more video of Waltz claiming he's served in war. He was like, when I was at Bagram Air Base in Iraq, which Bagram's in Afghanistan, but okay. He was like, when I was there, I saw American soldiers who'd been killed being loaded onto that plane. You didn't serve in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Well,
right?
and apparently he visited Bagram as a congressman much later. So he does this slick thing.
Yeah, it's a sleight of hand.
Where he sometimes uses the correct language, although sometimes he does not use the correct language.
Right.
But here's the part that gets me. If you want to really go to the most proof for something, his rank when he retired is not the one he advertises on his current website. And I'm quite certain that a governor of a state who served in the National Guard for 24 years knows the rank that he had upon retirement.
100%.
Right.
And they're just and people, of course, liberal reporters are I'm sure it doesn't really matter. Yes, it matters.
Oh, it matters.
It matters.
And it matters to the veterans a lot.
And it's in print
Right.
on several occasions.
So we referenced it earlier. JD did all the Sunday shows this last weekend. He did a phenomenal job. And he was asked this question by Dana Bash of CNN. Let's go to clip number 2.
And on the question of when he left the National Guard, he filed his election paperwork February 10th, 2005. That was a month before the National Guard even announced that it was possible that they would deploy to Iraq, and it ended up being 2 months. He retired 2 months before they actually got the paperwork.
But on CNN last night, Dana, one of the people who was actually in charge of him said they knew they were going to deploy to Iraq in February of 2004, fall of 2004. So he knew he was going to Iraq. He decided to quit, to retire, whatever word you want to use.
Retire.
Because he wanted to run for Congress. He lied about that. He said that when he decided to retire, he did not know that he was going to Iraq. That is another untruth, as even his senior military officer said. So again, I'm not criticizing the service. I'm criticizing the dishonesty.
He nailed it.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
You know what I love most about that clip is he's like, I'm going to go ahead and cite a source that you're wrong. CNN, the network I'm currently on, who had somebody who served with Tim Walz on and contradicted everything you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, he just nailed it. That's how you do it.
This is the thing about Walz. It's like, why do you have to say that you're in combat? Why do you have to say you have this rank? Why don't you just say I was in the military? Why do they play it up? It's like what he did with the football thing, where he's made it sound like he was Newt Rockne leading some program by himself to the championship, and it turns out he's a defensive coordinator. Nothing wrong with being a defensive coordinator, but why lie and pretend like that wasn't your job?
No, there's a pattern of leaving the wrong impression.
100%.
And when you're leaving the wrong impression about your service, that's a problem. And the press is doing this straw man thing where they're like, oh, so just because he wasn't in combat or he wasn't in a combat zone, that's not the problem. The problem is the misrepresentation. And it's been a pattern both in print and on video that we've seen for several, over a decade.
Back to your point, his wrong rank is on his congressional challenge coin. Mm-hmm. I mean, he printed it wrong on the...
Some thought went into printing that.
Right. You don't make that mistake unless you're doing it on purpose. But,
and you might ask yourself, why is this dishonesty relevant? I mean, most of the people listening to this show thinks honesty has some relevance. But why is this dishonesty relevant? Because this is a ticket from the Democrats who is claiming that, oh, no, we're going to do something on the border. Yeah. Oh, no, we're going to do something on inflation. We're going to do something on crime. They are lying through their teeth, and the media just won't call them on it.
That's it. It comes down to credibility. This guy has zero credibility by showing numerous times he's willing to lie. He's willing to. He's essentially a con man. He's just being a complete con man about it. And so when the heart of the issue, just like Ashbrook says, is if you can't trust this guy to be honest about something that's easily found, the most easy fact to find. There's a paper trail a mile long. Mm-hmm. He's lying about it all.
Also, like, the Democratic establishment and the media must really feel like Democratic voters are a real cheap date. You know? I mean, think about it. Kamala Harris didn't get a single vote from any of these people, not a single vote in the primary. Nobody knows who Tim Walz is. And the media and the Democratic establishment doesn't care, even if their own voters know who these people are.
Right. Right. No, a lot of Democrats are like, hey, maybe we should take the guy from Pennsylvania. It seems like an important state this cycle.
Nah, he's Jewish. He's Jewish. We can't have that. We can't have that. We got too many anti-Semites in Dearborn. We got to win Michigan. Yeah. Okay, so CNN and some of the other folks as well who have been criticizing JD, like, wow, you know, you didn't serve with him, or like, who are you to call and question his service? Again, straw man, to your point. You know, but let's see what veterans have to say. Spaghetti, let's put up graphic number 2. And I'm going to read this thing in its entirety because I think it's really important. This is a statement from Tim Walz's battalion commander on his service, and this was posted on Facebook. Feeling a need to say this, I do not regret that Tim Walz retired early from the Minnesota Army National Guard. Did not complete the Sergeant Major's Academy, broke his enlistment contract, and did not successfully complete any assignment as a Sergeant Major. Unwittingly, he got out of the way for better leadership.
I mean, that is off the top rope.
Yeah. Thomas Behrens was the right leader at the right time. He sacrificed to answer the call, leaving his family, business, and farming partner brother to train, lead, and care for soldiers. He earned the privilege of being called Command Sergeant Major. Like a great leader, he ran toward and not away from the guns. I have no opinion of Mr. Walz's decision to leave service at the time he did. It was his right to retire early. I also have no criticism of his service as an E7 or E8 in the MNARNG. By all accounts and on the record, he was a competent chief, firing battery, gunnery sergeant, and first sergeant. I cannot say the same of his service sitting frocked in the CSM chair. He did not earn the rank or successfully complete any assignment as an E9. It is an affront to the non-commissioned officer corps that he continues to glom onto the title. I can sit in the cockpit of an airplane. It does not make me a pilot. Similarly, when the demands of service and leadership at the highest levels got real, he chose another path.
I mean, it doesn't get clearer
Mic drop.
than that.
Mic drop.
That's it.
Well, and the guy who was the command sergeant major for this unit, who had to do the job because Walz didn't, is the guy who's on the record. That's
Right.
Behrens.
Right.
He's been on the record throughout. So that seems to like matter to me. This
And
is
you-
the guy
and
who
you-
ended up doing the
and
job.
and you think it would matter to the media who wants to split hairs here and talk about who can criticize Tim Walz. It's like, okay, can we go to some primary sources? How about all the guys who served with him?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing to me is for the media to do this, because what they're doing is they're siding with someone who's taking part in the stolen valor, and they're trying to discredit the people who actually did the job, who served their country. That's who they're trying to discredit.
Right.
It's disgusting.
It is disgusting. It's disgusting. Okay, we got to get on to this next story here. This is from Politico. The headline is, we received internal Trump documents from, quote, Robert. Then the campaign confirmed it was hacked. Former President Donald Trump's campaign said Saturday that some of its internal communications have been hacked. The acknowledgement came after Politico began receiving emails from an anonymous account with documents from inside the Trump operation. They believe it's foreign hostile actors, and the Trump campaign is blaming Iran. And they have good reason to suspect Iran. We learned, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, we covered it here on the show, that Iran is trying to influence the election to elect Kamala Harris. I mean, this was printed 2 weeks ago.
Isn't that collusion?
I thought that was collusion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm old enough to remember 2016 when they said that the Russians were colluding to ruin our election. And they won't even talk. Like, they put it in the Trump campaign's voice. The Trump campaign claims that it's the most dishonest move that they make to help Democrats. And I can't believe this. I really can't.
I mean, I don't know. It seems a little overblown Because it's not like in D.C. you can go around, there's people waving Hamas flags and spray painting Hamas.
Right.
Or Iran operatives in the actual government.
Yeah. We may never know Iran's true motives.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, like, you know, this has been documented on numerous occasions. We've gotten to have multiple discussions with Senator Haggerty on his work when he was ambassador to Japan, working with President Trump on how they isolated and quite literally bankrupted the government of Iran to the point where they couldn't afford any of, because what Iran loves doing is just spreading terror around the world. They sponsor all these Hamas terrorists all over the world. Hezbollah, they when they have money in their hands, that's what they do, terrorism. So Obama sends pallets of cash over to them. When Biden gets into office, they get right back to the same policy of coddling Iran. They got all their money back.
Well,
and
it turns
now
out
what
they
happened?
like the pallets of cash.
That's it.
Look at that.
So it begs the question. The pallets of cash, terrorism, which of those two things are their motivation for supporting Kamala and Tim Walz?
Yeah. I mean, they see it right here. Whenever you see Kamala Harris supporters gather, something's getting spray painted with Hamas. Like, that's not just a given. It's not a Kamala rally until that happens.
That's right. And I think you raise a good point, Smug, is this isn't just a hypothetical thing that happens in a faraway land, you know, where Iran is just funding these terrorist proxies. I mean, there was a credible threat on Donald Trump's life from Iran.
Yeah.
It's reported, I think, last week.
Yep.
You were saying they're burning American flags and singing Hamas chants in Washington, D.C. I mean, if you don't believe us, talk to Mike Pompeo.
Yeah.
Mike Pompeo still has tons of security. We had that interview with him, I think, a couple years ago, and he's on a hit list from Iran.
It was after it got declassified. He told us about it, where after they took out Soleimani, him and his wife had to sleep on military bases to keep them safe because there were so many credible threats that Iran wanted to kill him. And
Well, the
kill
thing
President
is,
Trump.
if we get into that, it's really going to distract from the joy.
That's the thing. We can't.
So I'm not sure that we can handle that. The good news about this leak from possibly an Iranian operative or wherever it's coming from threat is that all you have to do is count on a responsible and fair press to deal with this information in a judicious manner.
And a really competent administration that's had a very coherent foreign policy and great intelligence on the ground. Great thing here from the Politico story. You guys will love this. Here's the end. Iranian government officials could not immediately be reached for comment. Couldn't reach him for comment.
Ask him on Twitter.
Yeah.
How many? Hello.
Oh,
Or maybe
man.
just drive to the State Department and ask the ones who work there.
I'm sure we got some sleeper cells in there.
No, literally, do we know if they're gone yet?
No, we don't know.
They're just
it was
hanging
just
out?
brushed under the rug because that would be a bad story for the current administration.
It's not joyful.
Yeah,
Not
they can only have joyful stories.
Okay, so one other story we got to get to here. The title is Vance Makes His Sunday Show Sweep as Trump's Attack Dog. We talked about this here earlier in the show. Of course, you know, the framing of it is he's Donald Trump's attack dog. I think he did a fantastic job of clarifying, you know, I don't know, the priorities and the policy positions of this administration and the lack thereof of Kamala Harris. What do we think?
I mean,
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I just thought it was from that short clip that we saw and from his behavior on these Sunday shows, he's doing now multiple jobs. Like, not only is he the running mate, he's also doing the job of journalist where he's like,
it's
actually,
exactly what I was
this is what happened, guys. Here's the documents. Hello. Like, he is presenting the facts that the press is running from. Ashbrook's friend Eugene Daniels. I saw a tweet from this guy. You saw Waltz and Kamala Harris like playing at some chalkboard or something. He was like, look at Tim and Kamala hanging out. And I was like, did you try asking any questions? You were like, you know, an arm's length away from them. Ask a question.
And
You're
by
a journalist,
by the
right?
way, Politico's paying for him to be on a plane to be there to take that Instagram shot in front of the Coach billboard.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what you're getting.
That's exactly right. And I think so people who watch politics and support Republicans often criticize Republican candidates for why aren't you hitting the message right? Why aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? And what you often forget is that the media is so biased that Republicans have to level set in an interview. They have to provide the facts because they know that the audience isn't receiving them. There's only a certain amount of time. So what JD did in that CNN interview, and I mean, look, Dana Bash she's very talented. She's as tough as it gets when it comes to interviews. What JD did was put on a clinic.
Yep.
He provided the facts, and then he launched right into his message.
He really did, and we got to play this other clip. This is on the infamous cat lady remarks. Let's play clip number 3, Spaghettis.
What do you say to key voters like that? Republicans, swing voters?
Sure.
Who are put off by your views?
Well, what I would say, Dana, is if you look at what I said in context, the Harris campaign has frankly lied about what I actually said. I'm pro-family. I want us to have more families, and obviously sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes for medical reasons, sometimes because you don't meet the right person. But the point is that our country has become anti-family in its public policy. I criticized Kamala Harris for being part of a set of ideas that exists in American leadership that is anti-family. I never, Dana, criticized people for not having kids. I criticized people for being anti-child. And I do think that Kamala Harris has made some bizarre statements. She has said things like it's reasonable not to have children over climate change. I think it's the exact opposite message we should be sending to our young families. I want to expand the child tax credit. I want to stop those surprise medical bills. I want to make housing more affordable so that if you have a young family, you can actually afford to put them in a home. And I think that it is unfortunate that so much of our public leadership has become anti-family. One final point on this, Dana, if you go back to the COVID era, one thing that really frustrated me and motivated some of these comments is we were at a point where we were kicking kids out of school. We were masking 3-year-olds and putting the masks back on them, even as they were trying to rip them off at school. I think that if we had more people who took the right perspective and had a little bit more understanding of how little kids actually operate, we would not have made so many of those mistakes during COVID.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is why I backed him when he ran for Senate, and this is why I said he's the perfect pick. I mean, that's how you do it.
He's an underrated talker.
Yeah.
Super
He
underrated.
is. And I think they should have put him out sooner to defend himself on this stuff because he's pivoting extremely well. He's talking about policies that families might like. By the way, the end of that clip includes Dana Bash, who I like as press members go, right? But she said, I totally disagree with her on this. She says the school closings are a different issue entirely. It has nothing to do with families and kids because we didn't know a lot. It was a novel coronavirus. And he makes the point, no, this is the same issue. This is the same.
It is the same thing.
Because you guys didn't care about children. Mm-hmm. You put your fear of coronavirus and your love of the power to keep people where you wanted them in front of the needs of children. And it is one of the most gigantic policy mistakes of my lifetime.
And we haven't even begun to pay for it.
Of the past 100 years. Like, how many articles have come out saying that, like, children are learning at a slower rate because they weren't able to, like, read mouths and start forming vocabularies. And the damage that's been done to these kids because of these people who it was an absolute power grab. And for them to try to just like brush away history, like, oh, that's just old stuff. It doesn't matter. They have an entire generation of children who are just essentially they were abused when they should have been getting an education.
Well, and it's one thing to have made the mistake back then, which I think people did knowingly in a lot of cases, but it's another to not admit it at this point.
Yeah, great point.
Tim Walz in 2022 is on a radio interview saying about learning loss. I don't buy it. These kids learned resiliently. They had to figure out how to get online. And then,
holy cow,
one more. The Washington Post quotes the actual Harris-Walz campaign being asked about this issue. They say, schools were closed because Trump failed on COVID.
I mean,
they are completely disowning this opportunity to talk to people whose children were hurt.
Right.
And continue to be hurt by this horrible mistake that was made on behalf of teachers' unions.
And that comment you read, that's from a staffer. That's from a press secretary provide. And what I think's interesting is Tim Walz was happy to provide his own personal point of view back in the day when he thought that's what was politically popular to the group of libs in charge of our universe that he wanted to impress. What he's not doing now is interviews. J.D. Vance is on CNN. Tim Walz is not on the Ruthless Variety program.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But J.D. was not only on CNN. He was on CBS. And I know that you caught a lot of that CBS interview, and there was just a lot of ridiculous sort of like cutting out to do fact checks. And
let me just tell you guys, this is not stolen valor. I can verify it. I watched every single minute of all 3 Sunday show interviews or read the transcript of every single thing.
God bless you.
So the interview with Margaret Brennan was the most adversarial. And there's one moment where she gets so aggressive that what they decide they need to do is cut into the interview. So it was a pre-taped interview, but they cut into the interview with her on set doing a fact check.
Come on.
From the desk.
Come on.
But the funny thing about the fact check is that it supported Vance's point, not hers. It was what she did. What happened basically is they're talking about this born alive infant protection that came through the House and the Senate.
Yes.
Harris voted twice against it because
Right.
she views, and this was the quote that was used in the fact check, she views the idea that practitioners would help an infant who was born alive after an abortion attempt as an affront to reproductive rights and a setback in America. That's her quote. That's the one they used in the thing. Vance misspoke slightly and said she had supported that bill. And so they use his misspeaking to say, haha, we caught you.
Amazing.
But
She
it's
did
the
not
same thing.
support it.
It's the same thing.
So it's like the most wild, deliberately obtuse,
Yeah.
ridiculous, dishonest thing. And they break into it to say, it's not like they didn't have time to do their homework. They could have done their homework on this. But what she says is like, oh, yeah, no, she definitely believes in after they're born by accident, not giving them care. That's what she said.
And then there's documentation for Waltz where when he voted on this, his vote was registered as save the baby's life, protect the child. And then he goes and files the paperwork to be like, no, incorrect. I want to vote to kill the kid. Like, holy shit.
And
like
to
there's
be
a paper
fair-
trail right there for where he stands. There's no theoretics on this.
To be fair, it does sound too crazy to be true, but it is true.
It is true. But I really loved how JD really put it in personal terms there. You know, she was asking a question which I think was sort of unfair. And, you know, he's like, well, look, I'm a pro-family candidate, you know? We can't, like, sweep under the rug just how anti-family the ideology of the Democratic Party is right now. He referenced in that clip not having children for climate change. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was a couple years ago.
Yep.
There was a whole like series of clips or Vines or TikToks or some bullshit out there about, you know, parents talking about why they regretted having children.
Yeah.
You know, this is like a motif that keeps on coming up on the left about like trying to make adults who have children regret it. It's the strangest thing. They are anti-family.
No, polyamory and that are like the two biggest pitches at the Atlantic or wherever. It's like,
Yeah, right.
If you want to place something at a major publication, you write about polyamory or hating your kids.
They're
Right.
like, how do we destroy the American family? We've got a couple pitches.
Which is the opposite of how it used to be. I'm going to ask when Joe Concha gets in here, I'm going to ask him about the 1992 Democrat National Platform, which literally says that it wants strong families and that the government is not in charge of raising kids. People are in charge of raising kids. And I can't wait for his take
it's a
on that.
real time machine.
But it's unbelievable how far they've gotten.
Yeah. So we got JD Vance out there doing great work on the Sunday shows. Trump's doing this interview with Elon tonight. I'm sure, you know, this comes out on Tuesday. We'll have a lot of after action on that. But our question to you, viewer, if you're watching this on YouTube, many of you are, many people are saying, we got a question for you. What is Trump's best strategy moving forward? There's a lot of talk in the Trump campaign. Does he need to pivot? You need to do things differently. A lot of articles being written about it. We want to hear from you because we got listeners and viewers all across the country. And what is it you say, Ashbrook?
Like and subscribe if you wish to opine.
Very important.
We made
like
that
and
up.
subscribe. Yeah, no, we invented that. That's us first. But no, it's important. It helps people find the show in their algorithm, right? It's the algorithms. We're all slaves to the algorithm. We're going to be back right after this with your comments from last episode.
Folks, let me tell you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity, America's largest grassroots organization. Americans for Prosperity is out there every day fighting for you. Their goal, reignite the American dream. AFP's priorities are simple: secure the border, end inflation, make energy more affordable. And AFP gets results the old-fashioned way, through grassroots activism. They bring together like-minded conservatives, turning them into a grassroots army, and defeating the left's terrible big government agenda in the states and in Washington. And that's where you come in. With the media, celebrities, and universities stacked against us, it's the grassroots that will help us win. So please find an Americans for Prosperity chapter in your state and get in the fight. Go to americansforprosperity.org.
Okay. Our comments that we're going to read now are from our episode on Thursday, our Thursday episode. And the question was, what is Tim Walz's biggest weakness? And first comment always goes to the voice.
Well, so for this comment, Nikki Spaghetti, I'd like to put up graphic. I think it's number 3. It's a chart that was sent in to us by a great friend of the program, MI83I. And he made a point about how some of the states with the heaviest populations of veterans are the states that matter the most in this election. And this graphic that we popped up, if you look at these states, in the top 15, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona. And so his point is about stolen valor being a problem for Democrats in these states. And I mean, I think he's exactly right. It's a huge problem.
Wow, I didn't know that. Huh.
That's a good point.
It is good. All right, Smug, what do we got?
So this is from John Griffin. They write, Walz's big weakness is that he adds nothing to the ticket. The only reasons I see him being picked are, 1, they're afraid of losing Minnesota. 2, Harris wants impeachment insurance the same way Biden had with Harris. It's just like a nesting doll of idiots. They're like, just make sure the next person's a bigger idiot than me. What a game.
Oh, man. I love that. I don't know. I mean, Minnesota has been something that we've talked about being in play the last few cycles. It's always been sort of out of reach. I wish Holmes was here. He could throw some cold water on this because he knows there's some real lunatics up there. You know, Democratic farm labor, some crazies in that party. Okay, we got one more here. This is from Party Can. Party Can. That's a good name. I like that. Walz's greatest weakness after nearly 40 years living in Minnesota, a parenthetical, I escaped to Tennessee in 2023.
Nice.
I can say the man is extremely thin-skinned and has a raging temper. Joe Biden aged into his angry old man phase, but Tim Walz comes by it naturally. If J.D. Vance can get under his skin at the debate, Walz will lose it. And when he loses his cool, he comes off as as really mean-spirited.
Oh, that's not joyful.
Oh, this doesn't seem very joyful.
Doesn't sound like joy.
I mean, I could tell from that comment that you just read saying that, like, oh, those kids, you know, it just made them tough. Like, it helped them teach them resilience.
Yes,
Yeah.
we tortured them unnecessarily and
Just teach us
gave them
character.
5 years of learning loss. But
Yeah,
Unreal.
no big deal.
flex those
Unreal.
muscles.
Just overblown. You know what I love about this comment? Like, that's good scoop.
That is a good scoop.
That's what we call in the biz ground truth.
Yeah.
And that's why it's awesome to have listeners put in those comments. Please keep putting them in because we read all of them. We love them. Folks, we got to get to a very important sponsor. One of the flagship sponsors of the Ruthless Variety program. We're all big users of this product, Z-Biotics.
Huge.
Z-Biotics.
The GOATs.
I mean, we wouldn't have survived the Republican National Convention without it.
We wouldn't have survived, period.
Period.
That's why we're here today.
Yeah, so if you haven't used Z-Biotics, it's basically, you know, you take it before you have a big night. Maybe you've had a couple of drinks with the fellas, or maybe you're just having a bourbon recording the show. And what it does is it neutralizes in your gut all the toxic byproducts produced by alcohol. And so you wake up, you don't feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. It just gets to the heart of it where you know how it is after you have a night out. You wake up in the morning, you know that exact feeling.
Right.
It doesn't feel great. Well, imagine there was something you could have done about it. All you have to do, this is why I keep it on my bar cart. It's right there. If I'm going to have a drink, I'm not having a drink without a Z-Biotics beforehand because every time it has worked, every single time.
You know, it works because it was developed by a PhD.
That's right.
And one of the things that we like to say here at the Ruthless Variety program is that there is no tomorrow without Z-Biotics today.
So dire.
I mean, honestly, Z-Biotics, you've been a great sponsor. You can have that. That is a great
use that.
tagline. So whether it's vacations, weddings, birthdays, and reunions, there's so much going on. Get the most out of your summer plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to ZBiotics/Ruthless to get 15% off your first order when you use Ruthless at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/ruthless and use their code RUTHLESS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. Okay. We got to go to this interview.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Concha, Fox. He's got a new book out. You're not going to want to miss this. I want to welcome to the program a great guy. We were just talking football. Now we're here to talk about his book. Joe Concha, how are you?
Let's talk football. Screw the book.
Football first.
Who wins the Super Bowl this year?
Who wins the Super Bowl? Dude, I think the Ravens. I think adding Derrick Henry to already so many offensive weapons, I think it's the Ravens.
Yeah. I'm going to go not the Jets.
Not the Jets. Yeah.
That's the pick. 55 years. They haven't even been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But Aaron Rodgers can't get hurt in the third play of the year. We'll see.
It can't go worse than it went last year. But I mean, you're a Bears fan.
Yeah.
You feeling good about this Caleb Williams situation?
He wears nail polish. I mean, that's hard to get by. But our quarterbacks never work out. So, but it's not the best division. So maybe we could eke like a wild card appearance. That would be nice. I think the league's better with the Bears good.
It is a tough division. The Lions are sort of resurgent.
True.
And Packers just re-signed Love.
Yeah.
And the Vikings are always competitive. I'm not going to give them more than that because Holmes isn't here and he's a big Vikings fan. I mean, I think it's going to be a great division.
Either way, fantasy football. I have 3 teams, so
Oh,
I'm a fan of all teams basically. By the time you spread out all the players, and that's that. And I haven't won a championship since 2008, so
Yeah.
problem.
But football isn't the only thing you've got going on here. You wrote this new book, Progressively Worse. And I don't think it could possibly be better timed for today's political environment.
It's unbelievable. I came up with this idea 2 years ago, guys. And I just was looking at the party the way it was just going so far to the left. And my theory around that, as to why that's happening, social media. Mm-hmm. So people exist now, like AOC, not to pass legislation. It's all about likes and retweets. And you have a situation where it's all about snark now, where I remember a time, at least I wasn't really alive all that long, when Tip O'Neill would sit down with Ronald Reagan, have a bourbon after work, and work out some differences in order to compromise and get things moving forward. Right. You look at John F. Kennedy. The guy cut taxes during a recession. That's what he inherited from Eisenhower. People, may not know that. And they went to something like 6.6 GDP growth. I mean, that's insane. Yeah. He believed in a strong military, didn't believe in racial quotas. Like, this is a Democrat we're talking about. Now he would be like an extreme MAGA Republican. Right. Yeah. Jimmy Carter was a pro-life Democratic president. They're practically extinct in the entire party now. I think there's one lawmaker left who's pro-life. It's insane. But Clinton's the biggest contrast, because Bill Clinton, I readily admit this in the book, 1996, first time I could vote, and I voted for Clinton. Because you look at the time, we had peace, we had prosperity, and he was actually working with the other side to shrink government, welfare reform, balanced budget amendment. Don't spend what you don't have. What the is that, right? Right. So you see all this, you're like, and everybody thinks Monica, and that's the worst unforced error of all time. But the presidency itself was pretty good. And even Obama was the deporter in chief, because he had Jay Johnson, who was a halfway decent DHS secretary. And then everything just went boom that way. And I think the media plays a big role in that. I share one story. Remember 2019, there's like 26 people running for the Democratic nomination. Right. And then CNN said, okay, we're going to give each of you a 1-hour town hall. And of course, everybody says, sure, I'll take that. It's an hour of national airtime. Maybe I could stand out a little bit. Then they said, but there's one catch. You can only talk about one topic, the climate crisis. So if you're like the governor of Montana and you want to talk about trade or energy, the economy, nope, you can only talk about the climate crisis, and that's it. And then obviously we saw with MSNBC what they did to, a milquetoast Ronna McDaniel. Like, we got to get her out of here. She's a threat. Yeah. Crazy. Right? So I think the media has pushed this party in that direction, and there's no going back.
Well, and they've pushed their voters out. I mean, we've worked in Kentucky politics for a long time, and there were these ancestral Democrats, especially in the eastern part of the state, who rarely would a Republican run in some of these local elections for sheriff or whatever. Yeah. And so, people grew up being Democrats, but they weren't culturally the Democrats of today. They were more Republican, right? And so, they've lost so many voters over this period of time you're describing that have now been absorbed by the Republican Party.
Isn't that amazing that how the script is completely flipped? Yeah. It used to be about the party of the working man and woman, right? Yeah. And now they're completely the party of the elites. But one stat I share in the book is that the 40 richest congressional districts in the country are all represented by Democrats.
Wow.
I mean, isn't that insane?
Yeah, it is insane.
Talk about the elites. And obviously Trump's the populist guy, the billionaire who somehow appeals to the auto workers and the steel workers and that's why I think Kamala Harris still is the underdog right now, because I still, in the end, can't see steel workers just being like, yep, she's not going to ban fracking. She didn't say that. She's not going to end all fossil fuels, end all offshore drilling. Or I can't see an auto worker being like, yeah, that electric vehicle push that's going to put us out of business, or I'm going to lose my job. Yeah, I think I could still vote for her. So I think in those states, I still think that she's got major problems.
I love that point. And the reason why I love it is because I think it gets to the heart of your book, and that is the inherent contradictions of this politics of intersectionality in the coalition of the Democratic Party of today.
Yeah.
You know, gays for Gaza, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? And like that is, if I had to boil down, you know, what I know about this book, it's like it really exposes the hypocrisy of the modern, you know, Democratic Party in that sense.
And the people they're trying to like put together into this nice, neat basket.
Yeah.
One, they're environmentalists.
Right.
Right. And then on the other side, it's like a whole like racial check off boxes kind of thing. But yet they want to appease to the Hamas wing of this particular party and then just put them all together and be like, all right, follow us.
Yeah.
Right. We're good.
Right.
Oh, man. But look, it just seems like we're dealing with more and more politicians on both sides, by the way. It's all foam and no beer. Let's face it. I mean, where's the substance anymore, right? The serious people. I thought Glenn Youngkin would have been an excellent choice for vice president, for example, because I think that's a substance guy, right? Tom Cotton is a substance guy. J.D. Vance is smart as hell, but I just, for whatever reason, like he's going to be attacked relentlessly from now until the election, not going to fair shake about anything. But I like the fact he went on those Sunday shows this weekend and pushed back hard.
Yeah, he really did.
Jonathan Karl's a hack, isn't he? Oh, my God. He's written 3 anti-Trump books. 0 on Biden. Or 3. He got 3 out of it somehow. And then he's scolding Vance by saying, yeah, no, she actually wasn't the border czar.
Yeah.
So what are you talking about? Then literally, like, there's something on social media today showing him literally saying that, like a year ago.
Right.
So that's what Republicans have to deal with, but you guys talk about that all the time.
Well, you mentioned the Clintons and in the 90s and what Democrats were like in the 90s. And Duncan and I actually on Friday morning, we were joking about the party platform. Somebody posted the Democrats' party platform in 1992. I know you get into this in the book, but I've got a couple of excerpts I'd like to read just to get your reaction. Therefore, this is Democrats, mind you, in 1992. Therefore, we call for a revolution in government to take power away from entrenched bureaucracies.
Oh, my God.
1992 is about restoring basic American values that built this country and will always make it great. We also must tackle spending by putting everything on the table, eliminating non-productive programs. Governments don't raise children, people do.
Wow.
And the simplest and most direct way to restore order in our cities is to put more police on the streets. Democrats of today could not be more different than Democrats in 1992.
Oh, yeah. Now it's like the Oprah administration, right? You get to free this and you get to free that. It's all the free stuff.
The Supreme Court decision comes down on Chevron doctrine, and they acted like it was the end of democracy.
Right.
The idea that like Congress has to pass the laws that regulate the American people.
Yeah.
It's just, it's wild.
It's crazy. But Joe, you think the media has really pushed Democrats into this point where they get further and further and further left.
Yeah.
I wonder, I mean, you've covered the media for years.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about where it was in the 90s and how it's transformed into what it is today?
Sure. You had like real anchors like Peter Jennings. Maybe he was left-leaning. I don't know, but he never really presented himself that way. Now you get rewarded for being not even an activist, but a hacktivist at this point, right? And we saw even I mentioned in the book, I have a whole chapter on MSNBC. I used to go on that network as a young man. I went on this show called Scarborough Country.
Yeah.
And I got along with Joe just fine. Yeah. And now I don't recognize the guy. And you say, all right, is it because he's changed his ideology? No, he's a weather vane. Why is he a weather vane? Because you don't get that next contract if you don't tell audiences exactly what they want to hear. At least at Fox, we have some differing opinions and an actual news division. Right. At those places, like MSNBC, your election night anchors, mind you, are Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, and Joy friggin' Reid. I mean, can you believe this? No. So, but way back when, I'd go on Scarborough Country, or I'd go on Dan Abrams' show, who I think is a reasonable person. Yeah. Or you had Tucker Carlson had a show on MSNBC.
That's right.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. As did Michael Savage.
Right.
As did Jesse Ventura. I could go down the line. So they had all these mixed views, and that was a good thing. And then Keith Oprah basically took over the network and then created Rachel Maddow, who created Chris Hayes. And now you can't tell one show from the other. So I think in the end, and even CNN, by the way, in the 90s, you want to talk about great journalism. Bernard Shaw, Go back and watch a movie on HBO on the Persian Gulf War in the first one, and CNN's coverage of it. It's called Live from Baghdad, and it stars Michael Keaton. And you see these guys actually caring about their job and journalism and integrity. And now you look at who gets promoted on places like CNN or who they keep bringing back. I mean, Jeffrey Toobin was fired, right? I mean,
that's what we were told.
Yeah. I mean, hands down. One of the best analysts out there. My hands are up, by the way. Hey, guys, that guy got the shaft. I could go on. I've set this on fire. Oh, man. Or Stelter, Brian Stelter, who apparently is like another version of me. They fire the guy. He's a cancer within. He's going off publicly on his boss and privately going behind his back shivving. I remember Chris Licht. Oh, that's another great example.
Yeah.
So CNN gives Donald Trump a town hall in 2023, and they fire the network president because of it. And and Anderson Cooper goes on the air the night after that town hall and says, I know what you saw last night was very disturbing. I wouldn't blame you if you never watch this network again.
I mean, where does that come from? It just, the ideology is so entrenched in these networks. And it's just like, I mean, if you look at the front page of the Washington Post, you would think it was a climate religion newsletter. You know, it's literally a bulletin for the climate church service every single week.
You're right
about that. The front page is climate, 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 climate. And if you talk to Washington Post reporters, they'll tell you privately that they're like, hey, we want to cover the news. And so what I don't understand, and what I think a lot of people in our audience are just trying to figure out, because they lived through the 90s too. Yeah. They lived through the early 2000s too. And it's like, it's a great mystery as to why these mainstream medias went so far off the deep end.
I think I know one reason. It's because of this thing.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of it, by the way. After you guys do a good show, you do a good hit somewhere.
Yeah.
You're checking your Twitter.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
You're
Twitter.
checking Facebook to see what kind of reactions you get.
Yeah.
I went off on Biden last night in the big weekend show, and the phone blew up.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing. I think everybody, and you see it, like literally when you're sitting on a set, and I've done all the networks, you will see right after a segment, anchor goes right to the and wants to see what they say about that. What's the feedback? And if they're getting the feedback and the feedback is bad, we'll use Scarborough and Brzezinski as an example again. They had Donald Trump on their air during the 2016 election 41 times.
Yeah, every morning he was dialing in, talking to him.
Exactly. And Matt Taibbi even went off on Mika and Joe, saying like, I would take like a cyanide pill if I actually kissed his ass that much, you know? So, and then obviously the feedback was, this is bad because you can't support Trump. And then they do the 180.
Yeah.
So it's all about the feedback that they saw. They probably couldn't handle it. I think anchors and reporters in general, back in the 90s, for example, even, back in the 2000s, didn't have that feedback because social media really didn't exist.
Yeah.
So they could go about their jobs without really not caring about if they're pissing anybody off or not. If you piss somebody off now, remember Dasha Burns? She talked to John Fetterman before that Senate race.
Yeah.
She said he can't even have a conversation. She wasn't saying it in a snarky way. She was observing and then reporting.
Yeah.
And then insufferable people like Kara Swisher were like, she has to be fired. She's got to be gone. Why? Because she reported and did her job? So now Dasha Burns had to fall in line, and she's not going to make that mistake again, is she?
Well, and we saw the same thing on Biden's decline. The Wall Street Journal put out that article. This is a few months ago.
Yeah.
And I have never seen a more coordinated assault on a newspaper in my life from fellow journalists. I mean,
Simply for saying what they saw,
Right.
and what everybody else saw, and they put it in print. How dare they?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say the wrong thing. when it comes
and
to
then flash forward like 2 months after that reporting, and suddenly everybody had sources inside the West Wing, that this guy couldn't do the job.
Yep. I think one of you make the point on here, and it's always a good one. And I want to give the proper attributions. I'm not going to guess because I listen. I never watch the show because I'm always in my car. That reporters don't go after Democrats to help Republicans. They go after Democrats to serve other Democrats.
That's Ashbrook.
No,
That's Ashbrook.
That's
Okay.
Ashbrook.
You can watch it over and over and over again. It's always in service of another Democrat.
It is, right?
Because their objective, the only conclusion you can make is that their objective is to help Democrats win elections. And so they criticize a Democrat who they think will hurt that ultimate goal of Democrats winning elections. And so Joe Biden was sinking like a rock to the point where Trump's numbers looked like he could take the state of Virginia, for example.
Or Minnesota. Or New Jersey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they were like, Mayday, Mayday, we got to get this guy out of here.
And Joe, let me give you an example of this. And this is something if Republican operatives, a lot of folks who work on campaigns and elections listen to this, and so they'll empathize with this. But You know, when Mark Kelly, for example, was running for United States Senate in Arizona, the Oppo book on that guy was a mile long.
Oh, really?
You know,
personal stuff, right?
Personal stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously he had a great bio being an astronaut, married to Gabby Giffords and everything. But his financial ties to China and some of the stuff that he had done, literally working with like Tencent, with a company in China that does literal spying, surveillance. Huh. And there was great video of him on stage in China, like doing these promotional things with Tencent.
Right.
Anyway, but trying to get that written by a mainstream media publication when he was running for Senate as a Democrat was next to impossible. But the second that Kamala Harris was looking for a VP, lo and behold, it all comes out.
It comes out, and maybe that's why she didn't pick him.
But everybody was interested in writing about it because it might help another Democrat and not that Democrat.
Right, exactly. I just love the fact that for all those months, we're being told that it's a right-wing Fox conspiracy when we talk about it. Biden probably is close to, not being with us anymore, and at least has dementia in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And that Biden behind the scenes is actually some sort of like combination of like Simone Biles and Orson Welles, right? Right. And to get accused of something like that, like he's falling upstairs, he's shaking hands with the air, he's talking about the uncle that was eaten by cannibals, and we're like, nope, it's all fake.
Yeah.
So that's why what they're doing with Kamala here, I'm just shocked that it's actually having an impact on her numbers when I would think no one trusts the messenger at this point. But Democrats do.
I'm not sure it's anything she's doing at all. I think it's political gravity. It's that Joe Biden was historically unpopular with minority voters and with young voters in the Democratic coalition as it's constructed.
Yeah.
And so just putting in Kamala Harris by default, her numbers have improved with those subsets of the electorate that we were never going to get as Republicans.
Yeah. Right.
And so it looks like a bounce. It's really just a return to the mean, if you will, of how the electorate's constructed. Sure. But it is remarkable the pass that they're giving her to not talk to the media. Yeah. And I'm curious, as somebody, who works in that industry, what do you hear from other folks, and how is it that they're willing to accept that?
Because they're not journalists, right? They're exactly what we just talked about. They are activists, and the only goal is to defeat Donald Trump, no matter what they do. And I think in the end, it's going to come down to, since the media is not going to do their job, it comes down to that debate on ABC, the first one, right? And that may be the only one, because at that point, and I would hope that at least it's not Stephanopoulos doing this, or Jonathan Karl, or one of the incredibly biased people that we have over there. I mean, Jonathan Karl's basically like a younger John Harwood, and that's not a good thing, right? So, but David Muir, I think, presents himself as an anchor. He's, basically like the Gavin Newsom of ABC, more about looks than anything else. But I think he'll ask some good questions. I think Tapper and Bash actually did a decent job with that first debate, because they knew the spotlight was on him and everybody was accusing him of bias. They're like, okay, we'll prove you wrong. So maybe Muir does the same thing, because you're going to have 80, 90 million people watching that debate. That's the numbers that we've always had in the past. And if Trump could actually be disciplined, and that's the big if, because he tells the same stories over and over again, but he has trouble connecting the dot back to why you should care. So when he makes that line, and I always shudder when he does this, how millions of people are coming into the country illegally. Yes, that's true. And then he goes into the whole, they're emptying out the prisons and the insane asylums. Like, I don't know if they're doing that, right? That's something easily fact-checked. Then go to just appeal to people directly in Atlanta, Detroit, and Philadelphia, for example, 3 major cities and key swing states, and say, how's your sanitation these days? How's your educational system? How is your police force? Is it getting bigger or smaller? Because the answer to all that, sanitation's being cut, education's being cut, police are being cut because of all of the money being reallocated to people who should not be here legally, let alone the jobs that you're losing over this. I wish we could get like the apprentice Trump there more, and somehow like get him focused.
Yeah, little cause and effect.
Yeah, cause and effect, exactly. Yeah. And if he sticks to that and stays away from, the whole you're incompetent, you're dumb thing, right? Stay away from the DEI thing, right? Because he blew that answer. All he had to do was just say something along the lines of like, DEI stands for didn't earn it, right? And in Kamala Harris's case, Joe Biden asked him why he chose her, because he literally declared he was going to pick a female woman. He was going to pick a woman of color. And that narrowed down the choices to basically 2 people. It was going to be Susan Rice or Kamala Harris. And that's not the way you should probably fill that job. So, yeah, I think if he does well during the debate, guys, then I think the whole race goes back to where it was June 28th, quite frankly, because she has shown she cannot speak extemporaneously without a teleprompter, without a script, clearly. And now what? She says she's not going to do an interview until the end of the month. It takes 3 weeks to prepare for The View.
That was the funniest thing, and I think she announced that on like August 3rd. She was like, we'll get to it by the end of the month. Oh my God. I mean, that's incredible stalling.
It's just crazy. But like the other thing that she did about 10 days ago was she named Tim Walz as her vice president. We've talked extensively about him and his problems on the Variety program today and last week. And she's taken on a lot of water for that, despite the fact that the media is trying to paper over all of his history and the questions about stolen valor and all the questions about his work in Minnesota and the fires and the riots. It's not working. Democrats are on defense because of this Tim Walz choice.
Yeah.
So the second that Kamala has to do anything, they're going to be on fire because of it.
And let's think about it. This was her first major decision that she had to make, and I believe she did make this on her own, right? And they blew not even like a 2-foot putt. This was like the where the ball was in Caddyshack before Bill Murray started blowing up stuff. Like that's how easy this was. You know, Josh Shapiro, you guys talked about this. You're at 65% approval. Excuse me. In a state that's 50-50, and you choose him. Nate Silver has some sort of stat out, I believe, that says whoever wins Pennsylvania has a 95% chance of winning the presidency, right? Yeah. So that's all you had to do, and I think she would be in the driver's seat right now. But she goes, nope, we're going to go with, Tampon Tim instead. and you're right. Now they're playing different defense. So I guess with Kamala Harris, the only difference between genius and stupidity is that genius has its limits. Yeah. I read that once on a bathroom wall or something.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. Okay, so back to the book for a second. Yeah. Give our audience a little teaser here. What's your favorite section or vignette here in the book that you want to highlight for readers?
I have a whole chapter on Megan Rapinoe.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
President Rapinoe. Yeah. We call her at one point because that's what some anchor actually said, that she really probably could be president.
Come on, man.
Yeah. She got the Medal of Freedom. Right? Can you imagine this? All these veterans, all these people that deserve it, and there's Joe Biden, has no idea who she is, by the way. He's just told this Megan Rapinoe girl and puts it over her neck. But I do talk about a whole chapter on females competing against biological males, which you guys have talked about extensively. And I go back to my wife, who went to Georgetown, not far from here, and she ran Division I track.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, while she was pre-med, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got
overachiever.
Why'd she pick you?
Exactly what I was about to say. I got the gazelle who could help you out if you're pregnant or having a heart attack. I don't know how this happened, and she looks like a young Courtney Cox. Okay. So that's that. Maybe in post-edit we could we put a picture of us up there. But anyway, I had a point around this. Oh, yeah. So she's not very political because she's a mom and she obviously, saving lives and all that stuff. But when this whole Leah Thomas thing happened at the University of Pennsylvania, he was ranked 534th in the country in swimming and then went magically to number 1.
Yeah.
And she's like, you have no idea what kind of sacrifice you have to make in order to get a Division I scholarship in any sport. And she goes, and I can only imagine if I'm on the blocks and I look down and I see Christian McCaffrey basically that I'm running against, I know I'm losing. I could train as hard as I want. I could work as hard as I possibly can, run my best race, and I know I'm still going to lose. So I think when we go into that whole topic where basically you have now, we saw in the Olympics, right? It's like the East German women are back all over again.
Yeah.
There's a reason why steroids are banned from sports and Olympic competition, because it gives you a chemical and biological advantage. It's the same thing with XY chromosomes and X chromosomes competing against each other. You have a biological advantage. Right. So we don't talk just about, I guess it is a political issue per se, but we talk about the cultural stuff as well, and how the left has gone so far
inherently
that
is the contradiction, right?
Yeah.
On the Democratic Party today will be like, oh, well, that's fine, because they identify as a woman. How do the feminists feel about that?
That's what I mean.
Right?
You're the party of women.
Right.
And you're allowing them to get their asses kicked, like, in volleyball, swimming, boxing. Yeah. Where's the line here? So, I don't see how you could say you're the party of women and go ahead and do something like that. Yeah. That's why I think it would have been great if Trump, selfishly, I wanted him to take Tulsi Gabbard as a VP. Because when Kamala was VP, and to see those two back on stage, it would be Tyson Spinks all over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tulsi pretty much just ended her presidential campaign. It was incredible.
So I think Trump should have people like Tulsi out there a lot more, doing interviews. Yeah. Like, maybe she's not part of the administration, maybe she will be, but act like she is. Yeah. Can I ask you guys a question, because you know this stuff better than I do, having worked in politics directly. Can he start naming, people that he wants to name to cabinet positions?
He could. I mean, he could. He can do whatever he wants.
Right.
Typically, it's not done. A lot of those conversations are done behind the scenes, and some of like the marquee positions, like Secretary of State and things like that. There's an audition process,
sure.
and we're talking about the guy who hosted The Apprentice.
Right, exactly.
So he ain't giving anything away for free right away.
True.
He's going to watch, hear who his best surrogates are over the course of the next, what are we at, 85 days? Mm-hmm. And evaluate all of them during the transition. But I mean, I think it'll be a great cabinet.
It will be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he kind of did that with like Mad Dog Mattis, right? To show that he was going to be tough on defense. And I would just love to hear Tom Cotton, that's going to be my DOD.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
That would be.
Yeah. You name somebody like him. You make Burgum maybe the charge of the Treasury. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. I don't know. Things like that. And I think if he presents a team, then that takes the focus off of Trump to a certain extent and shows that he's a good manager and he knows how to pick people.
Yeah.
And the first time he didn't know how to pick people because you didn't know who he was dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Anthony Scaramucci was the White House communications director, for 11 days. I mean, that's amazing. And now he's out there, talking to debate moderators like, why don't you ask Trump this question? Remember that? They only had 2 debates in 2020 because of that guy from C-SPAN.
Yeah.
Thought he was direct messaging someone.
Yeah.
He was actually on Twitter with Smoochie. What do you think I should ask Trump?
I forgot about that.
Wasn't that great? And they canceled the second debate because they said because of COVID.
Yeah.
It was because of that. Their moderator was completely compromised.
Yeah.
And now ABC has this debate, and this is where I worry because, well, they have someone named Donna Brazile working over there now. And in 2016, she may have given debate questions away at CNN to the Clinton campaign, not once, twice.
Yeah.
So, and Kamala apparently has like this great relationship with like the top executive there.
Yeah. Oh, she's going to get whatever she needs.
She
ahead of
will,
time.
right?
She's going to do she's not doing interviews this month. She's going to spend the whole time preparing for the debate.
All right, so I've got a way to make it super entertaining. You were saying 80 million, 90 million. I think those are rookie numbers. I think we can pump that to like 120
Wolf of
million.
Wall Street reference. I got it.
And I think the way that we do that is instead of having the preset questions, we do it like, when they draw the lottery numbers and they have the big ball that they turn and then they pull them out, open it, and then there's your question.
That would be great.
So then nobody knows what's coming.
Ooh,
and
like
nobody can pre-screen the questions with the candidates. What do you think?
That's a perfect idea.
Right. Yeah. And think about the visuals. Perfect.
I'm so going on Fox tomorrow, like presenting that idea.
Do it. You can have it 100%. Yeah.
No, I will credit Where's Joseph? Mr. Duncan gave that to me. Oh, that's great.
Oh, man. All right. So we always end our interviews with 3 big questions.
All right.
And these are very important to our audience. And I think we're going to love your answers.
Yes.
The first one, very important. If you could plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
In terms of what I'm choosing to eat?
What you're choosing to eat.
Oh.
You can plan it.
Really, I can? Oh, man.
It could be anything.
It can be anything, right?
Yeah, liquid and solid.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'll be predictable
Okay.
and say porterhouse steak.
Yes.
With mushrooms and onions. Sauteed.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
The drink of choice would be Maker's Mark. With Diet Coke, because if it's like having a Diet Coke when you have a Big Mac. Like, that's really going to help. So you have that, rocks, but it's got to be in a round glass. It can't be a tall glass, right? And just one. That's it. We want to be able to taste the food, and that's that. And then you got to go carrot cake for dessert.
Carrot cake.
Yeah, that's big. That's what we had at my wedding. We had carrot cake, and then you know how you take the wedding. You're both married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You take the cake home, and then a year later you eat it.
Yeah.
We take it home. We open it up, and it says, "Congratulations to Mindy and Rob." They gave us the wrong cake. There were 2 weddings going on in the place, and we got the wrong one. Yeah, and it was like
so great,
like a lavender cake or something horrible, but I threw it out of me. Yeah, it's like bad karma there. What's the second question?
Second question is, if you could go back and do it all over again, blue sky, do anything with your life.
Yes.
You didn't do what you're doing with your life now. What would it be? Could be anything.
I'd go to a different college. Not because I didn't love University of Maryland College Park, but I'd go more south.
More south.
Yeah, a lot of sundresses down there. That's always like kind of a nice thing. I used to have a party called the Sundress Fest down in New Jersey. True story. I'll show you pictures after. But yeah, I would go to like an SEC school.
Okay.
Because when I went to Maryland, of course, they end up being on probation, the basketball team.
Yeah.
All right. And the football team goes from being like really good, like Boomer Esiason and Frank Reich, to not good at all, like 2-9 kind of seasons, So yeah, I'd want the big school experience. It would either be Georgia, Tennessee, or Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's not quite south, but Rudy, I got a soft spot for.
Yeah, but they still have the pageantry.
A lot of tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But,
that'd be nice.
Probably Georgia. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question. And I would change my name to Jack. Because I got to have the name Joe, which used to be cool. Pesci and Piscopo, and now it's associated with the current president. That's not good. So I guess I'd want to redo that also. But I become Jack. I guess I could do that midway, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's college. You can reinvent yourself.
I can, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, done deal.
Okay, so the final question, very important, is we find that all successful people are motivated by one of two things, the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. And that isn't, everybody loves losing. It's that, the agony of defeat's like Michael Jordan. If he won something, he celebrated for 2 seconds. If he lost, he carried around like a backpack for the rest of his life. And it motivated him to succeed. And, the thrill of victory people are like your Phil Mickelsons who, standing over a ball, 280 yards over the water. And they're like, yeah, I can hit this 2-iron. I've done it. I've done it before.
Yeah.
And that's what motivates them to succeed. So sort of on that spectrum, thrill of victory, agony of defeat, where do you find yourself?
I am in the middle. I'm on a tie right now.
Huh.
Yeah, because I get as much airtime at Fox as almost anybody else, as far as contributors are concerned. But I don't have that show. And I'd love to have a show. I'd love to have a show like this, where you just freewheel for, 30, 60, 70 minutes and it's not a problem. And Fox has that with The Five or Jimmy Fallon's or Gutfeld. That's true.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want it to be serious. Like people are like, oh, you could do a media show. Like Hannity says, like every time I'm on. But I'm like, no, I'd rather just have like a show where you talk about like anything, like you guys do.
Yeah.
And I would call it Ruthless.
Yeah.
And it would be awesome. So yeah, until I get there, then I can't say that I'm winning or losing. But it could be worse because I worked for Cisco Systems, an IT company, and I sold immersive video conferencing. And this was 10 years ago that I did this.
Wow.
While I was like writing and trying to get into television. And then finally Fox signed me, The Hill signs me, and that was that. So, but for a while I was in sales because that's the only way you survive in the New York area.
How did that segue work? from immersive video technology sales to television?
I kept doing spots here and there because I was writing for Mediaite.
Oh, okay.
Which was a different publication as well, way back when. I don't even recognize it now. And then eventually The Hill came a-calling. So I'm writing for The Hill, but I'm still doing like sales calls, going back and forth between that. But Fox is still booking me. But Fox, I was a guest on there for 5-6 years before they actually signed me. And that was in 2020. And some different people got into different places of power. And that was that. And then eventually I was able to ease out of the sales and full time into the TV. But Jersey ain't cheap.
You did drive time radio at some point too,
Yeah,
right?
710 WOR.
Yeah, that's a big station.
It is. It's huge. And then COVID hit, and it was like, all right, no more show.
Yeah.
They didn't realize we could just do the thing from home.
Yeah.
But I never burn a bridge, so they still have me fill in for Hannity, for a guy named Mark Simone in New York.
Yeah, Mark Simone. Man, that guy's been there a long time.
He has, yeah. He's great. So, yeah, I love radio, probably more than television, believe it or not. I can't do it every day. I like your pace. You guys do, 2, maybe a special 3 a week.
Yeah.
I think you burn out if you try to go for 5 days. Like Brian Kilmeade is the hardest working man easily in show business. He does 3 hours of Fox and Friends.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 hours on the radio. And then he's like, oh, yeah, and I'm filling in for, Gutfeld tonight. Like,
I don't know how he does it.
A complete machine.
He's addicted to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is on. There's a radio guy in the Northwest named Lars Larson. You probably know him.
Yeah, I was on with him. Yeah.
Lars does 3 hours of local, 3 hours national. I don't know if he's still doing it, but he would do 6 hours and he'd stand up while he's broadcasting the whole time, just like energy. And all he wants to do is talk on radio.
6 hours.
It takes a certain personality to do that 5 days a week. And like you say, I mean, it's just like you could easily see how you'd burn out.
Seriously. I do like little 5-minute segments across Fox day and night. People are like, wow, you work so hard. I go, no. Yeah. Compared to some other folks, trust me, 5 minutes ain't hard. It's a sprint. You're done. And most of the time, I have a home studio. So I do Fox and Friends first most mornings. And I'm in my pajamas, and I wear pajamas, cotton.
Yeah.
It's just the top is different, but the bottom is usually that. And then yesterday, I forgot to bring in pants for the big weekend show. So I was in a suit and shorts, and then I remembered, I'm like, oh, yeah, I have a pair of jeans up on the 12th floor in that closet. And I came running down, and that was that. But life is a lot better when you could do things from home, no question.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us. The book is progressively worse. Get it. You can get it anywhere where books are sold.
Yep, Amazon. I haven't set foot in a mall in like years. I was at a mouthwash like yesterday. I'm like, I'm just going to order this. Like, there's a store 3 minutes from me.
And if writing and radio and television aren't enough of a side gig, you're always welcome back here on Ruthless.
Anytime you like.
Awesome.
Absolutely. This is a great show, guys. I mean, really, between you and my good friend Megan Kelly, also a Jersey girl now. Yeah. it's just a great back-to-back that I absorb on a daily basis with you guys twice a week. But you know why? Because you guys are authentic, and you can't teach authenticity.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
No, we appreciate it.
What an ass kissing. This better get some good promotion.
Thank you.
The guy is a great guy.
Yeah.
You know, like you cannot have a bad time sitting there talking to Joe Concha, and his book sounds like a real winner. And I ordered it on Amazon, and I can't wait to read it.
Big football fan, easy to talk to, although he's a Bears fan. So,
That's tough, man.
so
He's
pray-
got it worse than anyone else.
Pray,
That's a
pray
tough
for
one.
him.
A great follow, too.
Yeah,
he is a
on
good
Twitter for
follow.
sure.
Great follow. Great
Yeah,
follow.
he holds the media accountable.
Yeah. All right, you want to get to some variety?
Always.
We've got fantastic variety today. The first story, the UK descends in dystopian levels of censorship from the Washington Examiner. Think before you post. That's the chilling message that was just posted from social media accounts affiliated with the UK's government. Amid the riots and the civil unrest in the streets in Britain that were initially sparked by anti-immigration protesters, the post warned citizens not directly involved in the uprisings that they too could face arrest even just for their speech. Can you believe this?
Yeah. I mean, I saw a video of it posted online where, I mean, these are like grandmas and grandpas who have their phone out and they're recording. The police come in their house and they're like, what are you doing? Like, what's the story here? They're like, well, you posted some kind of like, disagreeable things on Facebook and you're being charged. We're here to put you under arrest. It's like, are you for real? Like, this is actually happening.
Yeah. And they were saying they would target Americans too.
Their government said that they want to extradite Americans.
Extradite.
Well, they have targeted Americans. And when they did, you know what Americans wrote? When in the course of human events. That's what happened. Can I read you another couple of lines from the Declaration of Independence? The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. I would like to read you one of those. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
That's what's happening in England right now. They are living under tyranny. They can't speak for themselves. And I know that we promised the listeners of the Ruthless Variety program we wouldn't read them the Federalist Papers or the Constitution, but we've just broken that promise for a good reason.
That's right.
A written constitution is actually quite important. And
It
it would
is.
be great if like more people in charge here read it.
Exactly right.
That's right.
And I mean, that's the thing is it's horrific. And I think it's easy to take for granted. I think conservatives take it less for granted because we have seen recent history of what happens when, a political party tries to silence their opposition. And we're fortunate, Elon bought Twitter. That act alone, it's shocking because you would have not seen anything that we've seen over the past few years exposing this administration, any of this news, if he had not done that. But the fact that today in Britain, this is the situation where people are scared to write things online because the police are going to show up. That's insanity.
Well, and part of this is in any place where these sort of Orwellian liberals are in charge, what they end up doing, and San Francisco's a good example, Minneapolis in 2020 is a good example, they go after the people who are easy to go after. You're an otherwise law-abiding citizen who's posting on Twitter. We got a law for that. You're in Minneapolis and you want to have a church gathering cookout, and it's 2020. We got a snitch line for that. What we don't do is go after the people committing violent crimes and burning things down because that would be like hard and insensitive. But you guys, you're the target. The proof is in the pudding. This is what they do.
This 100% is.
That's scary.
It is.
And by the way, can I give you another Tim Walz quote?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Oh, my God.
They don't know things. They're either deliberately ignorant. By the way, he was a social studies teacher in high school.
That is terrifying. Terrifying.
I mean, that is just chilling.
It's bad, guys. I mean, the Biden administration started that disinformation
Right.
board.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
They wanted to start the truth
That's
ministry
a
of truth.
dystopian thing that sort of went by the wayside. We've forgotten about.
Well, remember, it was disinformation. And then because Elon bought Twitter, people were allowed to put videos up of Joe Biden having dementia. And then that became deep fakes. And then he went to that debate and had to quit the presidential race because it was all true. It's like you say, Smug, the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is about 6 months.
That's it.
correct.
That's it.
All right, so we got this other story. This one's very interesting, especially for lovers of alcohol. Also, another plug there for Z-Biotics. You got to have that first. The title here is, A 19th Century Shipwreck is Filled with Champagne Bottles and Sweden Won't Allow Anyone to Sip.
Wow.
Believe this? No one will be allowed to fish out any of the nearly 100 bottles of 19th century champagne and mineral water nested on a shipwreck off southwest Sweden without proper authorization, officials said Wednesday. Though the wreck's location has been known since 2016 and is registered in Sweden's National Antiquities Office cultural environment, it was only on July 11th that Polish scuba divers found the precious cargo. The wreck, which sits at about 58 meters. We don't do meters. This is the United States of America. Spaghetti, what are you doing?
It's about 190 feet.
That is 190 feet.
Can I stop you right there? The Swedes have booze sitting at the bottom of the ocean right by them since 2016, and a bunch of Polish guys were the ones who found it?
Yeah, only the Polish have the courage to do the right thing.
Are you kidding me?
You ever hear that joke about like Polish submarines have screen doors? Maybe it actually worked out this time. So, hey guys, I found some champagne.
Oh, no one is safe. No ethnic group is safe from Smug's ire.
Okay, guys, I found the champagne. Nice.
I would like to apologize to the Polish American community for catching strays out of nowhere.
Topical ethnic jokes for any story.
Would you try it?
The champagne sitting at the... Of course. Are you kidding me? You know what they're doing. The Antiquities Office is the one who put the kibosh on it.
You think they're having a good end of the year party?
They're going to take it for themselves. That's what socialism and these governments do.
The weasel word is without proper authorization.
Right.
The people in charge will be the people who have proper authorization.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. It's the same thing I always gripe about how Kamala wants to shut down fracking totally. How so far this administration stopped all fracking on government land. That land belongs to you. People of Sweden, that champagne belongs to you.
It does.
Put on your scuba gear. It's yours. It's free.
I mean, I think that's absolutely right. Before we get out of here, I know Mary Katharine Ham has a wonderful plug here that we got to get to.
I do. So I work with the Travis Manion Foundation, which is a group that does all sorts of activities that bring civilians and military members together. And one of the things we do is the 9/11 Heroes Run.
Wow.
Yes.
So at 911heroesrun.com, you can sign up for a 5K anywhere across this great nation. I'm doing one in Northern Virginia if you want to join me on September 22nd. But they're a lot of fun. Once you get involved with the Travis Manion Foundation, you will meet a ton of great people who push you to do harder and cooler things all the time. And it's a great cause and a great time to remember 9/11, to maybe teach your kids a little bit about it, to honor military folks. Families of the fallen are often joining us at these events, current veterans and first responders. So it's a great, wholesome time.
Awesome.
You can run or walk the 5K. You can do it, Smug.
Yeah.
Smug can do it.
Yeah,
I think you should do it.
What was the URL?
It's 911heroesrun.com. So
terrific.
Join us. They're all over the nation.
I'm going to go to the website and I'm going to sign up Smug.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do it.
And you get a cool T-shirt, and Americans love to do things for cool T-shirts.
Yes, that's
absolutely. True. We were looking it up over the weekend, trying to find the place that was close by and when we could do it to take the whole family out. And it's something we really want to do. And I know Smug really wants to do it too. I know Duncan does too.
Where is it in Northern Virginia?
Oakton. It is in Oakton.
Oakton.
Yes. So join us. It really is a fun time, and it's very wholesome, and it's like the kind of thing that you want your kids to be around, and it makes you feel better about the country when you're going through an election to see these people join together and to honor what makes this country great.
Yeah, honoring our veterans, honoring family, something Tim Walsh doesn't know anything about. God, it's just been a great episode. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, subscribe to that YouTube. You know,
it's more fun in video.
Yeah,
you get to see this
and answer our question of the day: where's the Trump campaign go from here? What should their strategy be? You know, we've got 80 days left in this campaign, so we're getting close, folks. Guys, I think it was a banger.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, MK. Thank you so much, Joe Concha, and thank you so much, listeners. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.